What's up, guys? Back here at the Fifth Street Gym for another show with a special guest here, Lazar Stojadinovic. My man, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for rolling through.
For sure.
For those that don't know, Lazar here, he's a multiple-time champion in MMA. Fought in many organizations. Recently coming back from a knee injury. And the first time yesterday, there's probably some footage either at the Fifth Street Gym Instagram channel or Lazar's channel as well, but there's definitely some footage out there of you getting back in the ring. First time, right?
First time, yeah, after 9 months out, just doing physical therapy and just recovering the knee, and didn't really know how I was going to respond to the movement and stuff like that, because like I said, it's my first time doing it, and we responded well, thank goodness.
Yeah, I know. When I saw you the other day, I was like, yo, like you look really... I was like, that was your first time back in the ring sparring because you had no headgear on, you're bouncing around, switching angles on guys, and I was like, man, he's looking good for, first time after a knee injury. So like, it feels springy to you, no issues with balance or anything like that.
Not at all. It felt strong. I knew that it was strong, but I wasn't sure I was going to do with cutting the angles, the bouncing in and out in live event, like sparring or in a fight. Wasn't sure how I was going to respond to that, but it felt great. I mean, I wasn't sore afterwards. Felt completely fine. So.
Have you been kicking again? Because I know you said that's kind of how it started, right? It was from kicks or receiving kicks.
Well, it was from a fight. I received the kick. He actually kicked my back leg, but his knee bumped into it was like a freak accident. His knee bumped into my front leg, and I hyperextended my front leg, and just tore PCL, MCL.
So did you know immediately all right, something's wrong with my knee here in the fight, or was it you're too much adrenaline, you're just kind of after fight thing?
I mean, I felt it as soon as it happened because I've never experienced a knee injury. So when you hit it, I felt something pop instantly, and my knee didn't have it didn't hurt, but it didn't have the same spring. I felt it. It was like every time I stepped forward, it was kind of giving out and felt very shaky. So the pain wasn't there, but the agility movement of the leg wasn't the same. So I knew something was up.
What's it like to be conscious of an injury in the middle of a fight? Something's wrong. I think we saw it recently. A lot of MMA fans, if you're tuned into the recent Eagle FC show, Khabib's new promotion, they had Kevin Lee fighting Diego Sanchez. And I actually just saw the highlights of the fight, but Kevin Lee seemed to blow out his knee pretty early in the fight, off of a kick, and had to, he ended up winning, but he had to fight 2-3 more rounds with that.
Yeah.
And he talked about afterwards, man, that was a lot to deal with mentally to know, I'm basically on one leg right now.
For sure, yeah. I mean, for me, I've suffered other injuries in the past. I've went into fights with serious injuries in the past. For my CFA fight when I fought Jordan Parsons, I fought for the CFA world title. And I went into the fight with both shoulder injuries, labrum tear, rotator cuff tear. The guy was talking a lot leading up to the fight, and I remember in training camp just not being able to. I couldn't even raise up to my arm to pick up the salt from the cabinet to make food. And I remember thinking, man, something's seriously wrong. And 3 weeks before the fight, I went and got an MRI, and the doctor told me, your shoulder, your labrum is torn from 12 to 12, your rotator cuff is destroyed, and you have AC joint arthritis. And I was just like, man, I can't back out of this fight. There's no way. I was 23 years old, and I was like, man, I'm just going to fight, and whatever happens, happens. I tried to do the best I could in the training camp with what I had. And once fight time came, I was like, well, this is it.
Yeah.
Whatever happens, happens. Doesn't matter, And I actually won the fight by knockout, and then
with the bad shoulder too, you're
whipping
it.
They were both bad. I
Okay.
had to get both of them reconstruction surgery. So ended up knocking them out in the first round, and then after that, 2 weeks later, I ended up getting surgery. And for me, it's just the way I think about it is like whatever's done is done. We're gonna go out there and fight. You know, what am I gonna do if somebody shoves me in the street and tells me we have to fight?
My shoulder.
I'm not gonna complain about my shoulder. I'm gonna pick my hands up and fight. So that's kind of how I look at it. You know, it's a do or die situation. I'm not gonna give up because I have an injury. I'm gonna fight until the end. You're gonna have to put me out for me to, you know, for the ref to stop it, for the fight to be over.
Yeah. And in the CFA, like one of the organizations, also Global Legion, PFL. You know, you captured the title in the Global Legion promotion. Tell me a little bit about, like, you know, the experience of capturing a belt and achieving some of those goals.
To be honest, so I've won 4 world titles in different promotions, and the Global Legions one was a really sweet title to win because when I won my titles early on in my career, I was really young, didn't really have any adversity to face. I was just a young kid. Won world titles, and they were just trophies to me, you know. But when I won the Global Legion title, there was a lot of things that went involved. So I came off 2-fight losing streak, and then everything happened, everything shut down, and I knew there was no way for me to fight. Everything was shut down. I was just like, man, there's gonna be another year. That's already 3 years of my career that is gone. You know, I lost 2 fights. Now I'm out for another year. I was kind of like, what am I going to do now? Reached out to every promotion I could possibly find on Facebook, Instagram, and reached out to Dino, and Dino told me about the guy from Global Legions. Talked to him. Great guy. We ended up working something out, and it ended up being amazing. And got 2 fights in, fought for a world title, and that was a really, really sweet title to capture because of everything I went through to get there, you know. The fight before, I suffered a legal knee and ended up coming out and winning. The referee didn't call it. I got kneed in the face. Almost, I was rocked. I was almost
Were you
out.
like knee down while it happened? Sort of like Aljamain Sterling situation?
It was like I had all, my hand and my knees were down. I went for a shot. He sprawled in the shot, and he just bent me back. And he was a multiple-time Muay Thai champion as well. His MMA pedigree wasn't the best, but he was a very good Muay Thai fighter.
So
WBC world champion in Muay Thai, and he just cocked that knee back and whipped it. And I remember like just being all over the place, falling all over the place. I was rocked, and I was like, man, when he first threw it, I thought the ref was gonna call it. The ref didn't call it. So the fight went on. And the whole first round was just me trying to recover. And at the end of the round, I took him down and put him in a rear naked choke. And there was 10 seconds left, and the bell rang. And I was just like, I remember my head getting up, my head still buzzing. But like I said, when I fight, I'm always out. I go out there. You got to put me away. You know, I'm gonna fight to the end. You know.
Talk to me about, so there's 2 things I want to bring up about Global Legion and then also the ground game. But within Global Legion, and they really tie into each other here, but, you know, there's corners of the cage.
Yeah.
So a lot of people, you know, you watch the UFC, you have the octagon fence. You know, most promotions, it's maybe even a circle.
Yeah.
But Global Legion, it's a square, right?
Yeah.
So you have those corners of the cage. It'd be interesting to hear you talk about how guys use that in Global Legion, their advantage. You know, like Khabib is notorious for using the cage, and how would he use it in Global Legion with the corners?
Yeah.
And how do guys use that?
It's great because, so in boxing, you work, and boxing was what I started doing. I started boxing when I was 5 years old. I had 150 amateur boxing fights. So that's like my main martial arts, if you would say.
Yeah.
It's based on MMA. So when I saw the square, I do a lot of ring work, cutting corners, making sure you get the angles off, making sure you're able to corner your opponent. So when I saw the square cage, I thought it was awesome. I'll be able to use my footwork that I use in boxing, but translate it into MMA. Because as much as you try to use footwork in an octagon or a circle, at the end of the day, it's a circle. So they're able to escape. You use your angles to try to cut corners, but there's always an escape. They have an escape to the left, they have an escape to the right. So the square stops you from running away. So that was awesome when I saw that. He would have fun in there because, like you said, nobody's able to run. You're able to trap him in the corner, and once he's in the corner, it's going to take anybody.
Sure. So like you said, you have a ton of experience in boxing. That was your first discipline, but recently you're now, a master. I don't know if that's the right thing to say, but black belt in Jiu Jitsu, and that's a huge accomplishment. It takes so much time to achieve that. And Tony Christodoulo is a guy we've had on the podcast as well, and he awarded you that black belt here in the ring. So tell me about like the emotion going into receiving that black belt, the journey of becoming a black belt in Jiu Jitsu, and again, another part of your arsenal, right? You got such a long experience in boxing. Now you have Jiu Jitsu, just accomplishing another thing in the sport.
Yeah, so it was awesome, especially to receive my black belt from Tony, because Tony was one of the people who was one of the reasons why I started taking Jiu-Jitsu so serious. So when I first got involved in the sport of MMA, like I said, I was a boxer. And my brother and my cousin were both MMA fighters. But I never liked MMA because of the grappling, going on the floor. I always thought boxing was the real fight. Like, you just use your hands, and that's what fight is. Not tying around and rolling around with another man. So like, I always insulted MMA. And I remember the way I got involved in MMA was, I was at my cousin's fight, and me and my brother were outside the arena waiting to get in. And two guys missed weight, and they asked my cousin, anybody to take a fight in short notice? And he said, my cousins were outside. Why don't you ask them if they'd be willing to fight? So the promoter came up to me and my brother and said, would you guys want to fight today? And we were like, I was like, I think I just turned 16. I was like, yeah, sure. Like, we'll go to Sports Authority, go get a mouthpiece and some shorts. And we both ended up winning. And I remember after that fight, I was just like, man, I put the gloves on. And I was like, man, this is what I want to do. And amateur back in those days.
Yeah, where was that? Was that in Florida?
It was in Chicago.
Chicago, okay.
So back in those days, amateur MMA, you wore the same gloves. The gloves were professional, no headgear, no shin pads. So it was completely
not much amateur about it.
Elbows were allowed. It was just, there's just no sanctioning body was around at the time. So MMA was just free for all. You could fight. A promoter could put up a show anywhere and have pros fight amateurs, amateurs fight pros. It didn't matter. So I ended up winning, and once I felt hitting somebody in the face with those gloves, I was like, man, I don't want to I felt like putting on boxing gloves was like pillow fighting. I was like, I don't want to do that anymore, and I started dedicating more time towards MMA. I was still boxing. I was still having some amateur boxing fights while I was doing MMA. And then when I was going, I remember I turned pro in MMA. I went 3-3, I think. And at some point I was just like, because I was getting taken down, I was getting out wrestled, I was dropping guys and doing very good on the feet. But as soon as I ended up on the ground, I had no idea what I was doing. So I was like, man, I need to change something up. I need to go find a real MMA gym and start training Jiu-Jitsu. And I remember I went to Dino's gym in Chicago, which was called Flow MMA, and Tony was training there already with him. And I knew Dino from seeing him at the amateur boxing fights. I would always see him and talk to him. I was a 15-year-old kid. Well, we always got along very good, but I never trained with him. And I remember I saw him at a fight, and I said, man, would I be able to train with you? And he was like, yeah, anytime, just come over. So I went to Flow MMA and trained, and I met Tony there. And I remember the first day I trained with Tony, Dino purposely put us to spar. And Tony took me down. At first, Tony's a kid, he didn't have any muscles. he was very goofy looking, and I was the king of the cage champion at the time. I was a strong kid, and I remember seeing him, and I was telling Dino, like, you seriously want me to spar this guy? And he was like, yeah, spar him. And then the first 2 seconds, Tony tests gloves with him to spar with him. He takes me down and he heel hooks me. And I'm like, I'm just blown away that this kid just heel hooked me. I'm like, how did I get heel hooked by this kid? And ever since that day, I was like, man, I got to start taking jiu-jitsu serious. I can't.
Was this like in the middle of Tony's career, or was he on the tail end?
So Tony at the time had no amateur or professional fights. Zero fights.
Just jiu-jitsu.
Just jiu-jitsu tournaments. And then Dino was like, Tony, this is Lazar. He's like, Tony, you're going to start picking Lazar up every day. So we became like best buds. We were driving to the gym every day. I was helping him with his boxing. He was helping me with my jiu-jitsu. So it was just like a perfect teammate to have.
Sure.
Because, you know, his striking was what he needed help with, and my jiu-jitsu is what I needed help with. And it was just a great partnership. And we just grew up in the sport together. And when he first started doing MMA, and he wanted to fight MMA from the beginning.
Yeah.
He's always wanted to fight MMA. And everybody at the gym was just like, man, do you think this kid could fight MMA? Like, they didn't want him to go out there and represent the gym. I was like, man, this kid is tough. Put him in spar. Like, put him to fight anybody. He'll fight anybody. And I was like, I remember being like, me and Dino being one of the first that like had the confidence in him to go out there and fight. And look, he made it all the way to the UFC, and people didn't believe that he could do it, you know. So it was just great to see his achievements from that point of view, and then like him awarding me the black belt was just something special because he was one of the first to like kind of help me grow in my grappling, you know.
For sure. I mean, what a pairing! Both you guys helping each other with what you need to improve in your game, and then also from that point, you had a ton of success in multiple MMA organizations. Like you said, Tony made it to UFC, had a lot of success, and now he's doing a lot of breakdowns, right, on IG, which is pretty cool. I like seeing those breakdowns of submissions and things like that. It's great. Yeah,
he has a very good fight IQ. He's able to understand positions and why you get to those positions. He's very smart with all that. Like, if he didn't do what he was doing right now, being a coach, if he could be a coach for world champions, I think he'll do an amazing job doing that.
So you mentioned boxing felt like pillow fighting once you went to MMA gloves. I know now you're kind of assessing what's next in your career, whether you're going to stick in MMA, maybe you're going to do bare knuckle or entertaining that. What are your thoughts on your future? What do you think you're going to try to do next? Are you going to try to get back into the MMA circuit, maybe bare knuckle, boxing?
So definitely MMA. I don't see that. My last fight was a loss, so I don't see me ending that chapter of my career based off a loss. But bare knuckle is something that I'm definitely like interested in doing, just because, like I said, when I did MMA, it felt like boxing pillow fight. So like now, just going bare knuckle would just be amazing. You know, I have those street fights, even though it doesn't translate. I've had experience punching people without any gloves on. So I mean, I would love to do it for sure.
And you got plenty of boxing experience, right? Which is not a knock on the BKFC scene, but a lot of these guys are not former boxers or don't have an amateur boxing background. Most of them are MMA or wrestler type that go into bare knuckle. So I'd imagine having that, you know, just from seeing a few clips of you bopping around in the ring, I'm like, okay, this dude is not, you know, not your average guy in there in terms of wrestling or, you know, limited striking.
For sure. As far as I can see, especially in my weight class, I don't see any of those guys touching me. I mean, it would literally be a boxing lesson that I would teach every single one of those guys in there, you know. So, I mean, it seems like something great for me to do. I think I'll become world champion in there the first year that I'm there. I just don't see anybody in there with my boxing ability, especially in my weight class.
I like it. Talk your shit. Hey man, I really appreciate you spending some time here, telling a little bit of your story.
For sure.
You know, excited to see what's next for you too.
Thank you.
And you know, if you want to tell people where they can follow you on IG,
You can follow me on Instagram at Bronx Bomber 145, and through my Twitter as well and Facebook.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys. Hit subscribe, YouTube at The Pod Matrix. Follow me at Brooklyn Boxing Podcast. Follow Lazar. More content coming soon. Appreciate it. Continue watching. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Let's go.
The Pod Matrix.